Do you want to know what the most important rule in real estate is? It's the 1% rule. I said these exact words in a TikTok that I made about 5 years ago. That TikTok went viral. Why did it go viral? The 1% rule is the most important rule in real estate, also the most misunderstood rule and the most hated. Let's talk about why. This is the Rich on Money Podcast, episode 3. Couldn't be happier. Let's dive in. If you understand the 1% rule, you are going to be better off than 99% of people who invest. You're going to avoid mistakes and you're going to make more money. What exactly is the 1% rule? When you buy a property, the price you pay for the property plus the price to fix it, call that the rent-ready price. Property needs to rent for 1% of this rent-ready price to make good sense as a rental property. An example would be you buy a house for $170,000. You put $30,000 into it. It's rent-ready at $200,000. It needs to rent for 1% or $2,000 a month or more to make sense as a rental property. If it rents for less than that, then the price to rent ratios are way off and you're not making money. Why is this controversial? Because in many places, certainly in big cities, high cost of living areas, nice neighborhoods, you can't even get close to the 1% rule, especially when you consider what you're paying for in interest rates these days, and it's really hard to make money. Keep in mind, this 1% rule does not include financing. The 1% rule works assuming a cash purchase. And this is just something that you kind of do simply in your head because 1% is so easy to calculate to get an idea, oh, this might be a good deal, or oh, this is far from being a good investment. But financing costs need to go on top of this rule. Now, people often say, well, the 1% rule's outdated, like it doesn't work anymore, worked before. The 1% rule doesn't work in my city, my state, my country. It's BS, it's a lie. We don't follow that. You can say that all you want, but the 1% rule is universal. It's just common sense. It's just a number, and that number represents a relationship between the price you're paying and the rent you're getting. You can say it doesn't make sense. You can say it's hard to get. You can say it doesn't apply anymore. But if you don't pass this test, you're not going to make money. Price to rent ratio. You can't really argue with that. The topic of my second video I ever made on TikTok was the 50% rule, and it went semi-viral. It went about half as viral. Now you think I'm sitting here bragging about how I always go viral? Well, at the time, I'm like, awesome. I'm good at this. Everything I ever do is going to go viral. But I became disappointed over the next several weeks as nothing went viral again for a long time. I would say about 1% of videos go viral for me. Why would these two do so well? Because I think I picked two very controversial and two very important topics. The 50% rule states, whatever rent you're getting for a property, approximately 50% of that rent is going to go to expenses. Only the other 50% is actual money that you're bringing in. Now that might blow you away, and it blows most people away. Why? Because most people make the false assumption that if you take your rent and subtract the mortgage that you're paying, you now have your cash flow. Nothing could be further from the truth. That rent needs to be decreased by all the expenses that play into it. Now, what are all the expenses? What makes up this crazy 50% that nobody believes? I believe it because I've been managing properties for more than 20 years and I've seen it. I have actual proof of it. 10% of that is property management. So the 50% assumes you're paying someone to do property management. If you want to do property management yourself, subtract that 10% and just take 40% for your expenses. Then you have maintenance and repairs. Now, these things always come up on properties. People don't factor that into their cash flow. The older the property, the more things that could be about to break, the more this is going to cost. HOA needs to be figured in there. Property taxes and insurance need to go in too. Sometimes these are already tacked onto an escrow payment, but that is part of this 50% calculation. There are two more things that are expenses that most people don't think about. Vacancy is one. Vacancy is a true expense. It costs you money at the end of the day. It can eat into your cash flow or eliminate your cash flow. If your rent's $2,000 a month, but you're vacant for 6 weeks, I hope I can do this math. That's like a month and a half. The costs of your vacancy is $3,000 out of your pocket. You should have made $24,000 and you're making $21,000. I hope my math is right. The last thing that really eats into your cash flow that most people don't calculate for is something called capital expenditures. Those are large expenses that you only pay every 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. But when you pay them, they're really expensive. They could kill your cash flow for years, especially if your cash flow is tight and your money's tight. What's a capital expenditure? The thing I think of the most, getting a new roof. For my small rental properties, that's going to be $8,000. Getting a new AC unit installed. About the same price, $8,000. Where you are, it could be a lot higher. Think about cash flowing maybe $150 a month with your loan, right? And you're kind of happy with that. Cool. If you replace a roof for $8,000, how long is it till you're cash flowing again? That's 8,000 divided by 150 a month. It's many, many years, right? These capital expenditures that could be coming up in the future have to be factored in. It's tough, but it's a fact of life. What are the other ones? Flooring, windows, water heater, replacing a driveway. I've talked about the 1% rule and the 50% rule. I want to talk about the relationship between these two. If you're getting 1% of the property's price in rent per month, you're getting 12% of the property's price per year, right? 12 months at 1% a month. Combine that with the 50% rule. If you're getting 12% a year and 50% of that goes to expenses, that means 6% goes to expenses and 6% is pure profit. That essentially means if you combine these two rules, when a property passes the 1% rule as a cash purchase, it makes about 6% return on investment a year. That's what it's telling you. So if it doesn't meet the 1% rule, it's making less than that. And once you factor in financing costs, it's making even less than that. So does this stuff seem useful to you? Subscribe and leave a comment. It really helps me out. I want to share this message with more people, and I want them to know that this is good stuff. Let's talk about the way that sometimes people get confused about their own cash flow. This definitely happens in the military a lot because we're moving around every 1 to 3 years to a different city. We buy houses. Let's say we're in San Diego. You buy a house, you live there, you move away, you turn it into a rental, and you're bragging to your friends about how much money you're making. Hey, I've got a mortgage of $2,900 a month, but I'm getting $3,000 a month in rent. So I'm cash flowing $100 a month. Isn't that awesome? Nothing could be further from the truth. You have not yet calculated how much you're spending on expenses. So $3,000 rent minus $2,900 mortgage, $100 a month cash flow? Hell no. What about maintenance? What about property management, repairs, HOA, taxes and insurance, vacancy, capital expenditures? A conservative estimate is 50%. Even if it was 20% on $3,000, that's $600 of expenses. You're very negative every month with this property that you thought you were making money on. It's just a common mistake people make. I'll get more into how to avoid this later. On top of that, the house you bought in San Diego, you bought it for $600,000. Well, 1% of $600,000 is $6,000 a month, and your rent is $3,000 a month. You're way off from the 1% rule, which is part of the reason these numbers don't work. Here's an example of a good 1% rule purchase. The kind that I do myself, the kind that I like to help my clients do. You buy a property as an investment for $120,000, put $30,000 into it, make it a really nice rental property that's not going to have any capital expenditures for a long time. You're $150,000 all in, rent it out for $1,700 a month. Well, 1% of $150,000 is $1,500 a month. You have to rent it out for more than that for it to be a good rental. This one rents out for $1,700. It passes and surpasses the 1% rule. This is a good investment. That's our bread and butter. That's our gravy. That's what we're looking for. Now, I'm going to talk to you about problems with the 1% rule. Why does the 1% rule not work? And where does it not work? The 1% rule doesn't work in the following locations. New construction, all right? It's brand new. It's awesome. Nothing's going to break. You're going to pay a premium for that. You're not going to get the rents you need. High cost of living areas. Honolulu, San Diego, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., even places like Denver, Salt Lake City, Austin. You're just not going to do it there. Gated communities, expensive homes, good school districts. These things typically will not come close to the 1% rule, and you just won't make money if you try to invest there. The opposite is also true. You can go to a really bad area with really cheap houses, buy a house for $40,000 and get $800 a month in rent, but it's in a war zone, right? It's in some place with gangs and killings and stuff getting robbed all the time. So you can get those rents, but your money gets eaten up with turnover and crime and poor quality of tenants. So somebody might say to you, hey, Rich, I got an opportunity for you. I'm selling this property downtown. It's this cool little loft and you can rent it out to military members and make all this money. Well, just do the 1% rule in your head. How much is it selling for? Well, I'm selling it for $300,000. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay. What does it rent out for? It rents out for $1,600 a month. Ouch. $300,000 needs to rent out for at least $3,000 to pass the 1% rule. This rents out for $1,600, because it's in a downtown area, it's in a high cost of living area, maybe it's a newer building, it's just not going to work. I like testing properties that I'm going to buy for the 1% rule for long-term rentals. What I mean by that is it has to pass the 1% rule as a long-term rental property. Sometimes people will try to convince you to buy a downtown property, a beach property, or some kind of a touristy property, and then Airbnb it. And then it's kind of like, well, this will make $6,000 a month as an Airbnb. You can buy it for $500,000. It passes the 1% rule. BS. I don't count Airbnb incomes as monthly income because the rules can change. You're not allowed to do this as an Airbnb anymore. A slow season, right? Or condo association changes the rules. No more Airbnb. Airbnb is not the way to go here. Airbnb is an advanced tactic. I want to talk about other advanced tactics in a second. Here's the 2 best methods to use to invest in rental properties. I'm talking about the rich on money, rich carry way of doing things. Safe, effective, proven over time. Number 1, you want to move into a property as your primary residence. Buy it with a primary residence 30-year fixed rate loan, which is a lower rate and maybe lower no down payment in some cases. Live in it for a short amount of time. When you move out, turn it into a rental. You get to keep that primary residence rate, but now it's a rental property. Number 2 way to invest, buy a property as a rental, buy an investment property on a 30-year fixed rate loan, just a standard loan. You might need 20 or 25% down for this, unless you can find some other way to do it, but that's what's standard. You'll get a decent rate, but not as good as a primary residence loan. Buy it as an investment property. You've got the 20, 25% down. That helps keep your mortgage a little lower. You've got some equity in the property. Rent it out. Maybe you self-manage. Maybe you have a property manager. Rent it out. Try it for 6 months or so, a year or so. Yes, this seems to be working out. Yes, I'm getting some cash flow. I like it. Save up another down payment. Do it again. Slow, methodic, smart. You're going to make money this way. Now I'll explain how many other people will tell you to invest, like other gurus that just want your money or are just selling their course or whatever they have to peddle to you. I'll give you the pros and cons of these methods. Typically, I don't think they're good for new investors. A lot of them I think of as advanced tactics. They also have distinct cons to them. There's cons that you might not be aware of. No money down, right? This is great. You don't like my way of doing things because I want you to have a down payment, right? And it takes a while to save all that money. You want to do this now, but you don't have any money. You have bad credit. You don't have a high-paying job. So you want to go for these no money down methods. Well, no money down methods kind of suck. They're kind of lame. Consider it an advanced tactic if you've been doing this a long time, but if you're a beginner, the failure rate's very high. With no money down, what you're really doing is it's no money down for you, but you're going to convince somebody to put money at risk so that you can buy this property without any of your money. No money down often means that you're doing seller financing, which means you're going to find a person or a couple that owns a property and convince them to sell it to you and use them as the bank, often convincing them not to take a down payment, but to just take monthly payments from you. So they've taken the risk. They have no down payment from you. If you mess this deal up, if you don't do a good job with the property, if you walk away from it after screwing it up, they get their property back. Maybe after your tenants trashed it, so they're taking the risk. Maybe you convince your grandma or some private investors to invest for you and you'll do the legwork. That's no money down. It's their money down, not your money down. So you won't lose your money, just your reputation. I don't like no money down. Section 8. This is an advanced tactic. You can get higher rents. Government guarantees the money, but you tend to have more problems from those tenants. They don't have skin in the game. They're not paying for the property they live in. There's also additional inspections to go through, paperwork stuff to go through. It's an advanced tactic. Don't start off with this. Using hard money or private investors to flip houses. If you think you're going to flip houses and start making money as a beginner, you're sorely mistaken. I've made some expensive mistakes flipping houses, especially the first one, the second one, and the third one. It takes a while before you get it figured out. Flipping houses is a lot of work. You got to keep your expenses down. Contractors might try to rip you off, or you might not realize that they're taking too long or doing shoddy work. It's an advanced tactic. It's not the right way to start. There's something called wholesaling. Wholesaling is kind of simple, but wholesaling is something that a lot of people don't understand. What you do is you might find someone, again, like the old couple that owns some property. They own it free and clear. They don't have a loan on it. You convince them to sell it to you very cheap, like 30 or 40% below market value. Let's say they sell it to you for $100,000. Well, you're not really buying it with your money. You're going to write a special contract that allows you to have the option to buy it for $100,000 and then run out and find somebody else that'll pay more. So you've agreed to buy it for $100,000. You find someone that'll pay $120,000 for it. When you close on this property, that person pays $120,000. $100,000 goes to the sellers and $20,000, the spread goes to you, but you haven't come out of pocket for any money. A lot of times, the sellers that sold it to you for $100,000, they don't know what's going on. You kind of have to mislead them. You have to let them think they're getting a fair price, not really explain that you're shopping it around and trying to get something higher. It's a little bit seedy. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Try something else. You want to buy a rental property? Here's what you need to do. Number one, you need to get a pre-approval letter. If you're paying cash, cool. Then you're just going to print out like that bank statement that shows that you got all that cash. If that's not the case, go find a lender, the bank that you're using, say, I want a pre-approval letter because I want to start shopping for properties. The realtor that you're working with or the person that you're trying to buy from will want to see that pre-approval letter when you try to buy the property, when you present an offer. Pick a real estate agent. Now, if you're experienced enough, do it without a real estate agent. Find someone on your own that hasn't even put the property on the market. But if you're going to go shopping for properties that are already in the market, find a good realtor. What kind of realtor is good? You want a realtor that knows a lot more than just the marketing, putting it into the MLS and showing houses to people and taking Instagram photos. You want a realtor that is a top producer. You would think that the busiest people can't take care of you, but it's usually the opposite. The busiest people, they're just people that get things done, and you'll want to buy from them as well. Another thing I like to ask is, how many listings do you have right now? A lot of times you can go on a website and see how many listings they have, maybe on their company website. If they don't have any listings, they're probably not doing a lot of business and they're probably not going to be the greatest for you. A good real estate agent for someone who's investing is also an investor themselves. They own rental properties. If they don't own them, you're not going to speak the same language. They're not going to understand what you're doing. They're not going to do a good job for you. You need an investment savvy real estate agent. You need an investment-friendly real estate agent because some real estate agents just want to help people that are looking for a nice, beautiful home with a nice pool in a gated neighborhood. And that's not what you're looking for. You need to pick a property management company or decide to self-manage. In that case, you need to watch all my videos and content on self-management because I have a lot on it and I'm quite good at it. But if you're going to pick a property manager, and you probably should do this if you're out of state, you need to pick a good one. Google reviews, look at the website. Talk to other investors, find a real estate investment group in that city and ask inside that group. A lot of them have Facebook groups. A lot of them have monthly meetings. You need to get in there. Call the property management company and see if they answer the phone. Look at the website and see how well put together it is. Look at their fee structure and see if it seems fair. I'm going to close this off by giving uncommon advice to you potential real estate investors out there. This is what makes me a lot different than most. This is what makes me not a huge guru because I lose lots of business by thinking this way, but it's how I actually think. You should not invest in real estate unless you can invest in it from a financial position of strength. What does that mean? Go back and listen to my podcast episode 2, which seems to be one people like a lot. It's about how to get your financial life in order. It's about how to retire wealthy, starting from like when you're 18 up until like you're retired. But you need to do things like pay off your debt, figure out how to make more, figure out how to spend less, invest the money that you're saving, fund your retirement accounts, put something away for your kids' college, then start thinking about real estate. What? After all that? Yes, after all that. You shouldn't be trying to buy real estate right now when you're all jacked up financially. Fix that credit score, pay off your debt, get a better job, get another job, get a side hustle, marry somebody rich, get a sugar mama, figure it out. That's not the part that I do. You got to figure that out. But I can help you invest in real estate from a financial position of strength, and you'll be happy you did. This is Rich on Money, signing off.